Anyway, I went through the Ford factory, and then we had instruction to move out that night. So we was getting ready to move out, and the Germans laid a shell in on us, and we had a tank, a medium tank with about a 3-inch armor plate on it, and they hit us on the front, but the shell went up underneath that armored plate between that and the body of the tank. It just lodged there. So then that night we decided to make this pass down through the streets of Cologne, and I told my driver before this, I said, now, Dito, I said, be real careful, because the Germans have these streets all zeroed in. You know what I mean by zeroed in? The crosshairs, all they got to do is pull a trigger. So I told him to stay to the left as far as possible. But I said, don't anticipate my command, because these bomb craters are so deep, you'll get off in them. Well, he was as nervous as I was, of course. A little scared, of course, when you're making attacks. And I just about ready to tell him to traverse left, and he drove right off in this bomb crater. We turned over. Bottom side up, the turret, not the turret, but the escape hatch is on the bottom of your tank. You got two deals that you turn, and you can drop the plate out and escape out of your bottom. Well, we was upside down. So I turned these knobs and kicked that plate out, and I says, let's get out of here. And so we got out of there, and we went over in this house, and in this house, was back a little ways, was a major, and I was kind of jogged down the basement, you know, and I noticed I couldn't feel anything. And I showed it to the major. He said, soldier, he says, you broke your fingers. Well, what happened when it turned over and I was tank commander, the hatch came down, you know, like that, and I ducked down, hurt my back a little bit, but caught these fingers, compound fractures, another story to tell you about that. Anyway, after that, why, the major gave me a shot of morphine. You ever had any morphine? Oh man, that's real stuff. It puts you to sleep. And I slept there until morning, and when the ambulance was going to come around, and a lieutenant came down and he says, any of you guys want to go with me to see if the Germans have stashed their guns or anything like that? And no volunteers, and of course crazy me with one good hand. I said, I'll go with you, Lieutenant. What are you going to do? Yeah, so we just have to check and see if they've stashed their guns. I says, okay, well, I says. So I went up with him, and we checked everything out, and they'd stacked their guns just like that deal there is, you know. And there was Lugers and P-38s and just all kinds of things, little guns and everything. They had stashed them. We were making a drive. There was about 5 tanks. There's usually 5 to 7 tanks under the lieutenant's jurisdiction, you might say, or control. We was making a tank up over a little slope, and as we came up over there, why, I looked out across just before a little road over there, and I probably saw 20 or 30 GIs killed, mowed down. 2 or 3 of them had red crosses on their hats. Didn't mean a thing. Didn't mean a thing. We come up over that hill, and of course we went on down, and of course we was the end of that battle, and I happened to look in this German Red Cross truck, and all I could see was this Germans from here on down. We had blown his head and everything else off. That's war, you see what I mean? He was plastered up against the back. That's just something. But what bothered me was those good boys, 18, 21 years old, was just mowed down. See, things like that stay with you quite a while. And then Another incident was kind of touching, was that we'd made a line attack, and the tanks were knocked out a lot with mines, you know, on the ground. They stacked one mine on top of the other, and when they hit our track, when we hit that track, they blow the track off, and you go round, round, round like that. But you got to get out of there fast, because down there's that 88. You know, they know that it's all mine. They're waiting for you. But we happened to hit this mine, and so we jumped out and bailed out and run over to get back to the lines. And in the meantime, I happened to glance back and look. And of course, I carried a 45 right here. That was my weapon as far as they go. And I says, Dito, I says, the Germans are back there looking at us. They were. They were scared too, just as much as we were. They had white coats on. That was during the bulge. And they had these white coats on, so I yanked my 45 and I shot, and run like heck. You know? And so we called in the artillery, and they laid in there, and those boys give up. Those German boys finally give up. And so we questioned them and asked them why did they give up, or why did they stay there, or what was? Well, the lieutenant said that if we retreated, he would shoot us, and we knew better than to go forward because you guys would shoot us. So we just stayed in our foxhole. They had no option. That lieutenant, and that was the truth. The Germans, they were very strict. I mean, if you did anything out of line, they'd just shoot you. Oh, they were too strict. And then another time, we were making an attack, and we got through, and the major had he has usually a little light tank, you know, a little light tank, and a Jeep. That's two things that he had. And then we were making an attack or something like that. And the mortar fell in, and, you know, bang, bang, bang. But when it explodes, and if it hits cement or ground, it's like that. Mm-hmm. Of course, I dove under this tank beside me, down a ways from me, and then it finally ceased fire and was all taken care of. And so I looked down out there about 20 feet. There was a major holding a private or whatever he might be. I says, Major, what's the matter? He says he's dying. I says, why? What's wrong? He got hit in the chest, he said, and you can't stop the bleeding. So he was telling the major his history. And I just watched him die. Just watched him. The colors from the grays, from the pink to the grays to the dark. After that, then the ambulance come up and started taking me back to the evac hospital. Got back to the 89th General Hospital in Paris. No, it was at Reims where that was, at Reims. And they reset my fingers as best they could. And then I was shipped overseas.
Was it just one hand?
Yes, all of these. The big story, I'll tell you about that. I'm left-handed.
Oh.
I played baseball. When we got the 119th General Hospital in England, down there, Blankford or someplace like that, we was in the hospital, and the doctor comes around with the nurses, you know, to find out about this patient and this patient. When he come up to my bed, he said, since I'd worked with the medical corps, you see, I knew all their terms. And he come up, he says, the nurse, looks like we'll have to amputate these phalanges, these 3rd and 4th, 5th phalanges. I looked up at him, I said, like hell you are. And he was a colonel, and he says, what do you mean, soldier? Well, Colonel, I says, I'm left-handed. I says, Colonel, I want to play baseball when I get home. Excuse me. Anyway, he says, okay. So they were set, but one of them was kind of like this, one thing another. But for a year I squeezed up. Oh. I got home, I played baseball, first base. Everything I threw was a curveball. And I finished up 3 years at Fort Hays. I graduated in '48. I married a wonderful girl from Waukene, Florence Dietz Roemer. And so we've had a family of 3 children. They all went to Fort Hays. I might get to finish my story with, after I come back from overseas at Boston, I think it was, and then we were shipped down to Glennon General Hospital at Ogie, Oklahoma. And there we got a little bit more medical care and things like that. And then I was shipped to Camp Carson, Colorado. And after that, why, they fixed out my papers and gave me a medical discharge. And that's the reason I'm the luckiest guy in the world.